One of the top-level considerations for the developer of a server-side web application framework is how to match the URLs to the resources on the server so that the correct one processes that request. The most straightforward approach is that you map the URL to the physical files on the disk, and this approach has been implemented by the ASP.NET team for Razor Page Framework. So the routing in ASP.NET Razor Pages maps URLs to the physical file on the disk. Now there are some rules on how Razor Page Framework matches the URLs to the files and how it can be customized to give different results if needed. The first rule is that Razor Pages needs a root folder. By default, the folder has been named Pages and its location is inside the root folder of the web application. Also in that folder, we will have a default document which will be index.cshtml. So let's go back to our application and see this in action. So the root folder is the pages folder that you can see here, and if we expand that, we have index.cshtml. Let me run the application here and see what happens. Inside here, we are navigated to the home page. The home page that loads here is the default index.cshtml inside the pages folder. If we click on privacy here, you can see the URL changes to privacy, and that page is present directly inside the pages folder. So the mapping of the URL is directly with the location inside the pages folder. Now if we stop the application and let's say we add a new folder here, I will call that as test, and let me move privacy inside test. Let's click OK here and let's run the application one more time. This time if you click on privacy, nothing happens. The reason is the URL that has been configured inside the master page, which is underscore layout. Let me show that. Here the ASP page is defined that you have to look for a page which is privacy directly inside the folder. But that does not exist because now we have moved that to a test folder. So if we go back, in order to navigate to the new location, it is simple. We just need to find out the exact path from the pages folder. So inside pages, we have a folder of test. Inside there, we have privacy. If we press enter, you can see it loads the privacy page correctly. So you can see routing has direct mapping on how the files are exactly stored inside the pages folder. Let me stop the application, close everything, and let me move the privacy page back to the pages folder. I will also delete the test folder that we added. Let's go back to our presentation, and here I have given some examples of how the mapping works. So if the URL is just www.domain.com, it will map to the pages folder and the default page index.cshtml. If the URL is domain.com/index, then it will map to pages/index.cshtml. And if it is domain.com/account, then by default it will first look inside the pages folder for a page with the name of account.cshtml, and if that does not find it, then it will look into the pages folder for an account folder, and in there it will see if there is index.cshtml, which is the default page. So routing in Razor Pages is pretty straightforward as compared to MVC routing, where we have models, views, and controllers. Here in Razor Pages, it is direct mapping to how the files are stored in the physical disk. So with that brief overview of routing, let's continue in the next video. In the last video, we saw how routing works in Razor Pages. In this video, let me walk you through all of the default pages that we have. Inside our pages folder, we have one shared folder that has underscore layout, which is the default master page of the application. Here we have a header, we have a body where we will be rendering all of the other pages, so they will have a header as well as a footer. We will also have all the CSS and JavaScript that we want to include throughout all the pages. We can include them in the master page directly. So what happens is inside render body, we will actually render any code that we have inside the other pages. Like we have index and privacy pages, you can see we are displaying some text of welcome, and inside the privacy, we have the header here that we are displaying with privacy policy. So if we run the application again, let's examine what is the home page. So inside home page, you see we have the header, we have the footer, and whatever text we are displaying right here inside the index page is displayed between the header and footer as we have defined inside the underscore layout. So all of the code that we have here will actually go inside the render body right here. That's how master pages work. So that is our underscore layout page. Next we have underscore validation scripts partial. When a name starts with underscore, that is usually a partial view or a partial page. Partial pages are like user components. They cannot be accessed via a URL, but they are being called inside some other pages. So it's like a table that you want in 10 pages. You just add that table in a partial view, and then you call this partial view in all of these 10 files, and that table will automatically be populated. In this partial view, we just have two scripts for validation. So in future, in whichever page we want validation, we will be including this partial view. Also, it is a good habit to name your partial views with an underscore and inside the shared folder, so it's easy to find them when we have to. The next page that we have is underscore view imports. Here you can define the common namespace that you have in your website. So let's say in any of the pages, if you have to add the using statement many times, you can define them in this file, and that will be like a global declaration. So once it is declared here, it is automatically available in all the other files. One thing that you see here is we have added tag helpers. So because of that, we will be able to use the built-in tag helpers that the .NET Core team has provided. If we go to the shared folder underscore layout, and if we expand headers, for navigation, we are using the ASP page tag helpers. You can see we are not using the href tag here. To navigate within Razor pages, we have something called as ASP page. The tag helpers for ASP will start with ASP and then hyphen and then the name of the tag helper. We can obviously create custom tag helpers if we want, but the .NET Core team has provided all of the default tag helpers to make programming super simple. We will take a look at more tag helpers as we proceed with the course, but here we have added that globally in our application in view imports. That's why it will be available whenever we want to use them. The next file is viewstart.cshtml. In this file, we will define what is the master page of our application. You saw that underscore layout is being used as the master page, but that is because we have that defined here that underscore layout should be the master page. Now what you can do is globally you can have underscore layout as a master page, but on the individual Razor page, you can still use the same Razor syntax and define a new master page. If you want, you can define a different master page, but we will leave that with underscore layout. The next view or page that we have is an error page, and this is the page that is used to display the error messages when you face them in production application. Next, what we have is the index page right here where we are displaying the text. Now you might be wondering if you are coming from web forms that with the files there was a code behind file. If you are coming from an MVC background, you will be thinking, where is the controller? Where does the C# code goes? With Razor Pages, we have a .cs file, if you expand that, right here. Now this is not a code behind file, it is just the naming convention. Inside here, you will notice we have the index model and it inherits or implements the page model. Here we have an onGet handler and we will have an onPost handler that we can add if needed. So here what we have to do is when this page is being called on get, if we want to do something, we will update that inside the onGet handlers. In MVC, we had action methods, but inside Razor Pages, we call them as handlers. So we have onGet handler and onPost handler. All of the code resides in these two pages itself. CSHTML has the page or UI code on what we have to display, and .cs will have the backend code where if we want to retrieve some data and pass that to the view or page, we can do that. When we are working with Razor Pages, there will be @page directive at the top, and there will be a model that will be added here. This model, you can see it is index model. And if you go to the .cs HTML, that is the exact class name. It is index model. Based on that, it automatically binds both of this file and it knows that this index.cs html.cs is the page model for the index Razor page. If this seems too much complicated, do not worry. When we start coding the application, everything will start making much more sense. And similar to index, we have a privacy page and a privacy page model. So those are all of the default pages that are available inside the pages root folder. With that, let me close all of these tabs and let's take a look at program.cs file in the next video. With that, let me close all of the tabs here and let's continue in the next video. In this video, let's take a look at tag helpers. Tag helpers are brand new to ASP.NET Core. Microsoft looked at the success around libraries like Angular, React, and decided that implementing an Angular directive-like experience in the new ASP.NET was so important to the adoption of .NET Core that they decided to create tag helpers from ground up. Even though there are similarities between Angular directives and tag helpers, there is a major difference. Tag helpers are for server-side rendering, while the Angular JS directives are all about client-side rendering. If you have worked with older versions of .NET Core, we had something called as HTML helpers. They are still around, but tag helpers are being modern with the tag-like approach, so it's much user-friendly. Tag helpers are very focused around the HTML element and are much more natural to use as compared to HTML helpers. We will be working with tag helpers many times in the application, but to just give you a brief overview, you can see in the first tab here we have HTML helpers, and tag helpers simplifies all of them because we can use the existing label tag and we will just add a tag helper ASP4 and we will bind that to a model. We have same tag helper right here as well. Then in the last example here, I am displaying tag helpers where previously we were using html.beginForm. And now within the same form tag, we have the tag helpers of where it should be posted. So you can see things are getting much more simpler when we are using tag helpers. That being said, if you are coming to .NET brand new and you have never worked with HTML helpers, this is even better. You do not have to worry about the old syntax and what is different. We will be working with tag helpers in the upcoming videos, but I just wanted to give you a brief snippet of what tag helpers are and how they look like when we are using the same tags. We just use the ASP hyphen and then the tag helper name. That being said, we will explore all of this in much more details in the upcoming videos. When you will be working with a .NET Core application, you will see the return type of action result. And it does not matter if you are using an MVC application or a Razor Page application. In both the cases, you can see we have iAction result. In MVC, we are returning back view in this example, and in Razor Page, page handler, we are returning back to the page. But the return type is iAction result. iAction result is a generic type that implements all of the other return types. Now, if you want to be explicit about the return type in both of these cases, then that would look something like this. If the return type is view, you can write view result, but in Razor Pages, when we return back to page, you can write page result. So now, what is the advantage of iAction result? So first, let's understand some theory. So action result is a parent class for many of the derived classes that have associated helpers. The iAction result return type is appropriate when multiple action results return type are possible in an action. Let's take a look at some of the helpers and action result. So first, let's take a look at what is there in Razor Pages. A Razor page can return content, file, not found, page, a partial result, and redirect to different pages. For all of them, we have return types like content result, file content result, not found result, page result, partial result, and so on. If we are working with an MVC application, we can return back views, partial views, we can redirect to action, return JSON, and so on. So if you are returning any one of these, then you can use the individual return types for result based on the helper method. But what if you were returning something like this? Right here in MVC, you can see we are returning if true. Let's imagine there was some condition here. Based on that, if that condition is true, you want to redirect to action, else you want to return to view. This time you cannot have two different return types. If you use view result here, return view is working, but redirect to action will throw error. Similarly, if you use redirect to action result, then redirect to action works, but return view will give you error. If you are working on Razor Pages and you have the same situation, if you use page result, then return page will work, but redirect to page will fail. And if you use redirect to page result, then return page will fail. So what is the solution to all of this? The solution is to use iAction result in both the places. Because this is a parent class, so it does not care which of its implementation is being returned, it will be able to handle all of them. So that is a brief overview on how action result will help us with the return type from action method in MVC application or page handlers in a Razor Page application.